Hello there, I'm Keo Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. And make sure you hit that like button. And make sure you hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe, share the live stream, and on today's topic, we're going to discuss just pearly things. Never apologize, even in the face of woke Armageddon. Now, I've been reflecting on this situation for a little bit. Now, I've been watching Just Pearly Things for a while now, and I've seen her gradual rise to fame and notoriety. It's been really impressive to see. And I think I kind of caught on to her from watching Melanie King, because that's who I kind of started watching first. Well, Kevin Samuels, and from there on. And I only found out about this whole situation with her because of the channel DD. And I was like, what's going on? And so I jumped onto the live stream, and she started playing these clips and with her interview with Nick Fuentes, which I found kind of weird because I'm like, that happened like a while ago. And the clips that she was playing, I was like, well, why does she need to apologize for? Because I found it really, I'll be honest, ridiculous. And it even gave me the impression of my instincts immediately told me this seems like an attack filled with jealousy and resentment and racism, because as I listened to her live stream, I began to get the impression, well, this kind of sounds a little racist. You know, she's criticizing, Pearl because she's not married, and she has a dating show, relationship show, and it has significantly rise to prominence. And apparently, dating shows are of the black community, I guess. I guess only black people date in the world, apparently. I'm starting to find that out, I guess. And apparently she also stole Kevin Samuels' talking points. I guess the dating world is, exclusively for black people, which has already got me like thinking, well, this already seems racist, and you're calling her racist. So that's where I kind of started going, well, this is nonsense. So I actually stopped listening because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Sounds like the woke nonsense that's going on. You're a racist. He's a racist. She's a racist. Everybody's a racist. I can't stand this nonsense. And this is coming from an island brother. I'm half Puerto Rican and half Jamaican, for everyone out there. All right, I know I'm already going to be excluded from the black community for the rhetoric and my talking points. But this when I saw this happening, I was like, okay, this is nonsense, and I don't need to invest my energy into this. So I pretty much just put it to the back of my mind. I was like, maybe I'll talk about this, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then I saw Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, and he did a video, and I was like, okay. I mean, he was just on her panel with Melanie King and several other people. I can't recall their names. And I'm looking at this, and I'm laughing to myself, like, is he serious right now? Even he jumped on this whole bandwagon of calling her a racist, and then he goes off and says, I cannot work with this woman anymore. Here are some black dating females who do dating stuff and talk about the dating world. And I just couldn't help but just like laugh at myself because I'm like, are we really doing this? Like, this is where we're at now. So I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. And if I'm going to be honest, pretty mediocre of an individual to behave in such a manner and profit off of this woke, ridiculous, hypocritical bullshit. It is kind of ironic how they're calling her racist, but at the exact same time they're being racist themselves. It's fascinating, honestly, when you really look into the woke culture. They drink that Kool-Aid, and it not only does it make them crazier, but it also makes them stupider. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, but I mean honestly, what are we doing here? So I don't I'm looking at this and I can't help but just laugh at it. I can't help but laugh at it. It's completely nonsensical. And then I just happened to see the black conservative perspective, and he did a video about it, and I was like, he said, Pearl, you should never apologize. And I was like, yeah, when he then broke down, he shared the clips that they're all going crazy about, and I'm looking at those clips that he's playing, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, Nick Fuentes, he's half Latino, half Italian. This woman is calling him apparently a white supremacist. And allegedly, supposedly, he is a white supremacist. To me, he looks like a provocateur, a troll. How different is he from Gavin McInnes? I mean, Gavin McInnes on Friday Night Tights recently, whipped out a fake penis and pissed all over his live stream table. And people call him a right-wing white supremacist and all this other stuff. So I'm looking at this video and she's calling him a racist, and he, he goes and says, how like the Italian community would reject you because you're dating a black man, and she's like, oh no, they would hold me down and protect me, and they would reject you. And he's like, they would reject you because you're dating a black man. And I just found it, to me, I was laughing because I was like, this is hilarious. This guy is obviously being a troll. He's gaslighting her. This is his thing. All right. He's also probably a very good grifter and con man. So, this is what I'm looking at. And, Pearl is just, sitting there and letting them hash out their conversation. And from what I understand, that woman is part of Pearl's crew. And she seemed to be holding herself down very well. And Pearl's just sitting there letting them talk it out, letting them hash this out. And people are criticizing her for not interjecting and not standing up and not doing anything to call him out on his behavior. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, well, she's the one that called him a white supremacist. She initiated the conflict. And I think it's honestly, it's like they're calling everybody a white supremacist. It's losing its meaning. It's really funny. Everybody's a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist. I literally have seen them call black people, Latinos, white supremacists. It's the most ridiculous thing. The situation that's going on with Graham Hancock, who's a very famous researcher, and he came up with the Young Adrias hypothesis, which was then later confirmed, and they were calling him a white supremacist when he's married to an Indian woman and he has interracial kids, and they're calling him a white supremacist because his perspectives and research into ancient history and origins conflicts with the mainstream narrative within archaeology and anthropology. And they're calling him a white supremacist because he challenges their rhetoric. but he's married to an Indian woman. It's getting old and it's getting pathetic. Everyone's calling everyone a white supremacist. And then they're calling Pearl a white supremacist because she's sitting there and letting one of her, I believe one of her employees, hash out her issue with Nick Fuentes. So we can't just allow people to have dialogue and conversations in panels? And we're going to call her a racist? To me, it just seems like you guys are mad and jealous for whatever reason. In my opinion, it seems like you guys are mad and jealous because some of you guys have been doing this for a while, for a long time. Your channels may have not grown substantially as you would have hoped for, and her channel blew up. And maybe, like the black conservative was talking about in his video, has an amazing work ethic and discipline. And maybe it's because of she's a product of her environment. And in her environment, you had to have a good work ethic. You had to have been disciplined. And I would speculate a lot of that discipline and work ethic that she has been translated over from all of her athletic sports and competitions. And then you then throw shade at her family because her family's a one percenter, and she acknowledges that and she talks about that, but it doesn't seem to represent her because she seems to have done all of that on her own. I don't know her background. I don't personally know her, but I get the sense that all of this is not only is it like racist, it's pathetic, and it's just jealousy. I'm so tired of this nonsense. And it's just kind of ironic to me and hilarious how the guy was on her, mediocre. I'm just calling him mediocre because this behavior in that video was really mediocre behavior. And he's going to pretty much write her off after being on several panels with her and hanging out with Donovan Sharp, who we all know now is a con man and a cuck and a simp. Don't shoot the messenger. Do your research on that guy. So, I just think it's kind of funny for, mediocre to behave and act like that. I don't see him, holding account Donovan Sharp and all of his bullshit and the way he's destroyed his family. But, I digress because, he's black. So, remember the black community, they know how to stick together, right? Sure. Yeah, they sure do. It's so funny, Hotep Jesus was right. I understand why he loves white people. I get it. He talks about his crew and everything, and it was always white people that came to support him and help build up Hotep Nation. I get it. This whole situation, it really shows how the black community is their own worst enemy more often than not. It really is. And to see this whole woke behavior and cancel culture on her for having open dialogue with different people, I guess that's to the woke culture. Remember, individual thought, freedom of speech. There's only two biologies. That's heresy. So I have to keep in mind that type of rhetoric and talking is heresy. But the point being is the fact that they are attacking her for literally exercising her rights as an individual. And then they played another clip of her talking about how a lot of the people that she hires are from Africa. They are either they immigrated here, or their parents immigrated here, and they have good work ethic and good discipline. And people got mad at her. Well, Dee Dee got mad at her for talking about that, which is hilarious because I hear black comedians talking about that. making jokes about how Nigerians have good work ethic and how they have a lot of doctors. And or it's, you know, you hear Mexicans make the same joke. You hear white comedians make the same joke. I've heard black comedians make jokes about how lazy the black people are. You know, to me it's just hilarious, and how she's like, you know, being racist because she's calling black people lazy. No, she's not. Look around you, America. Wake up. Don't you kind of find it a little odd that a lot of your doctors are Indians? Don't you find it a little odd that a lot of your doctors or your engineers are maybe Asian? You don't think about these things? Depending on your area, they might even be African. You don't think about that? Maybe it's because they have good work ethic, and maybe because of, you know, the product of their environment. Maybe they immigrated here and they are not as privileged as the black Americans are. I don't even want to call you black Americans. I'll get into that in a minute. Don't worry. But, you know, it's so ridiculous to me. You know, they're calling her racist because a lot of her employees are black, and well, not even black. They're immigrants, either from different countries. The King Richie, I believe he's from Nigeria, and he's not even an employee. He works with her. He has his own channel. You know, they're attacking him. And I'm thinking to myself, this is this is so stupid. But this is part of the whole division that they want. Why is it that they do such a good job of continuing to further divide the black community and make the black community like the enemy, and just canceling people? Wait, so we're not gonna be like, hey, wow, thank you, Pearl. You know, you are employing people, you're giving people opportunities, you're seeing the value in them and their work ethic, and you're giving them opportunities, and it's building a larger community. But no. She's a racist. She's a slave owner. This is so stupid. I don't understand any of it. And maybe that's because, you know, I don't drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm not trying to ride that, you know, and suck the taint of the woke cult, as many of these other people seem to be, whether it's DD or mediocre, you know, or that O'Shea Jackson dude. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. We have so much more bigger issues, but these people, for some odd reason, think they are the gatekeepers of the dating, you know, channel, manosphere, or whatever you want to call it, the red pill people. What are we doing? What are we doing? And the thing, you guys, your channels are monetized, so you're literally you are being racist, and you're monetizing off of it, and you're trying to cancel her. You know, and you had Dee Dee over here with her thing like, she apologized. Now what? Bing bang boom, we got her. This is so nonsensical. And for me, you know, I'm just a humble Ronin. I'm not part of the red pill community. I'm not part of the manosphere. You know, I'm not part of any of that stuff. I do my own thing. But when I see all of this stuff, I can't help but just see just childish behavior. And I just see just people being pathetic. And just causing further division and further headache. And to call her racist, it's nonsense. And people who, you know, who have supported her, who have worked with her, who are then trying to ride this wave and monetize and talk down about her and the people who work with her, it's really disgusting. And you know, and it's And it makes you really disheartening to see, especially how the way these black manosphere dating community kind of just ganged up on her, you know, and for what? What do you gain out of this? Besides, before besides making some money and paying your bills, what do you gain from this? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, like what do you gain from this kind of behavior and actions? I'm truly curious. I really want to know, what do you gain from it? Because I see all this kind of stuff, and it's just disappointing. And I know I'm a nobody. My channel's very small and insignificant in the algorithm and all of that nonsense. I get it. But for me, I believe in freedom of speech and people having diverse opinions, and we have to hear diverse opinions. We have to hear people that we don't necessarily know or like or understand. I mean, so you guys are pissed off at her about having Nick Fuentes off. You weren't pissed off about her having Andrew Tate. Make it make sense to me. I don't understand. And the Nick Fuentes interview, wasn't that like months ago? It's months ago, and now it's coming up. How long were you guys sitting on this before you decided to whip it out? It's just, it's just funny to me. It's really funny to me. And I just found out recently she has a black boyfriend. But this is part of the woke culture. You can be in a relationship with a black person and they will still call you racist. I mean, this is kind of funny coming from the black community, right? You guys, is that also part of the reason why you're mad at her? Because she's dating a black man and you guys don't like it when black men exercise their options because black women inherently don't necessarily like black men? I mean, Chris Rock said it best. Black women, oh yeah, they'll have fun with a Chris Pratt or what's another pretty boy that they like, a George Clooney, a Leonardo DiCaprio. They'll hang out, they'll mess with those kind of white boys, but they're not gonna mess up with the average ones. Chris Rock said it best, and this is hilarious to me. So what else are you mad at her about? So you're mad at her for having black friends. You're mad at her for having, immigrant employees. You're mad at her for having a black boyfriend. You're mad at her because apparently she's stealing talking points from a black man. And you're mad at her because she's successful. That sounds pretty pathetic. And that sounds like you have a lot of insecurities to deal with. And to me, the way Mediocre or Dee or O'Shea or whoever is attacking her, the way you're acting, it's a reflection on how you feel about yourselves, about your channels, about your business, whatever it is. But it's pretty pathetic. Especially from the people who know her personally. This is hilarious to me. The Mediocre, he's been on her show. He probably knew that she was going to be interviewing Nick Fuentes. This is what's so hilarious to me. She has put out that she was going to be interviewing Nick Fuentes. She even put a clip on her channel that she was meeting Nick Fuentes. So explain to me how all of a sudden now she's a racist when it was already established and known that she was going to be meeting with Nick Fuentes. Make all of this sense to me. Because honestly, it just sounds really pathetic and nonsensical. But that is the woke culture for you. That is who they are. That is what they're good at. And this is why I agreed with a black conservative. She should have never apologized. Because what was she apologizing for? What was she apologizing for? Okay, and now I'll get into the other part. of it. And for those who don't know, if you've made it this far into the live stream, this is Miss Pearl right here. I totally forgot to put up the picture of her because I just wanted to get in here and get my thoughts. But that's who we're discussing. Okay, bye-bye. So what I'm trying to get at is this whole thing is very funny to me. And it's going to be interesting to see Miss Pearl's response. I'm very looking forward to seeing her response to all of this. But I'm going to get into the other part of this. That was the most ridiculous part of how they started getting into slavery and all of that nonsense. And I don't know how all of this equates to her, justifying slavery. And I guess it's because of that video where she's sitting next to her friend who they're watching. I forgot the individual, but essentially they were talking about slavery, and talking about how, spoiler alert, black people, or I should say Africans, sold slaves. And she made a comment about why were they doing it? Well, to make money. That's what slavery is. So they're mad at her for saying, for justifying that Africans who sold other Africans were doing it because they were making a profit. Yeah. No shit. What are we? And we're mad at her for that? Apparently she's, downplaying slavery? What? So, what? So are we not going to talk about how the United States government turned Libya into a slave state after they took out Muammar Gaddafi? It's now a slave state in Africa. They're selling slaves in Africa right now. Are we not going to call Barack Obama a racist, since it was under his administration that Gaddafi is killed, and now Libya is a slave state? Oh, and why did they kill Gaddafi? Maybe because Gaddafi wanted to make Africa unite under its own African states and have its own currency, and the United States couldn't have that. Obama's half black and half white, so I guess this was his white side coming out, and he was like, no, we couldn't have that. So isn't it ironic that he's half African, right? I don't know which African country, but right? But then he goes and takes out Gaddafi because Gaddafi wanted to get out under the grips of America? Are we not going to call Barack a racist? I mean, because Libya's in Africa. Oh, but they're not dark-skinned Africans, right? Because they're the Sand Brothers, right? Because they're mostly Islamic, right? Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. This is why I find all of this stuff hilarious. These people are so quick to go right off onto the racist white supremacist bandwagon when they don't even know history. And they don't even see the irony of it. Because I can assure you, I'm sure Mediocre and Dee and all of them love the Obamas, think they're amazing people. Oh, we're not going to talk about how Obama killed more civilians with his drone program. But no, we love Obama. We're not going to talk about, all of the coup d'etats and regime changes Obama did. No. We love Obama. Right. Okay. This is why I can't stand this nonsense. You guys are so hypocritical, and you guys are racist. But what's no surprise here? The black community will be racist against other blacks. You have this O'Shea Jacks guy calling the black conservative perspective not a black person because he's a conservative and he doesn't drink the Kool-Aid and spat out the same Kool-Aid talking points that you see in the black community. Right here, before I head out, I'll get into the last point. You guys are calling her racist. You're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, and none of you guys have done any research. And I highly recommend it. I'll leave links in the live stream chat. You should check out Dan Calloway. All right, if you really want to know the truth about transatlantic slave trade. Now that's a bunch of baloney. Right here, I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna enlighten you. All right, spoiler alert. There were already dark-skinned brothers in North America prior to European arrival, but we'll get into that in a minute. But I want you guys to read this. Now, you see, if you guys go and pick up a Webster dictionary from 1812, and you look up what is a American, you'll get this explanation, and I'll read it for you. American, noun, a Native American, originally applied to the Aborigines or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So I'll let you guys let that sink in for a minute and read it yourselves. Yeah, why don't you guys take some time and research the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. You got Miss Dee Dee spouting all this bullshit about the transatlantic slave trade and calling Pearly Things a slave trader, I guess, slave owner, I guess. All this nonsense. It's ridiculous. You don't hear anyone talking about how they were already Aborigines. All right, and if you know what an Aborigine is, they're dark-skinned people, copper-colored skinned people, already here in the Carolinas, in Virginia. You can go research, the Virginia, Library, Congress there. Go look into their books, and see the drawings of Aborigine people already in North America. Yes. To make it easier for you guys, the black people, they were already here. So here, I'm going to end it off on this because, to be honest with you, I have no interest on continuing any more on the nonsense of the mediocres of the black community dating sphere. You guys are nonsensical. You're racist. You're jealous. You're hypocritical, and you're pathetic. And I honestly will not entertain that nonsense anymore. So this is all. I'm going to end it on this note for y'all.
Okay, this is going to sound a little nuts.
Formal gathering somewhere off the grid at a discreet location. Just after his return from crossing the waters, Malcolm X revealed some very vital, unconventional details on what Negroes, or rather African Americans, were truly considered to be as a nationality of race prior to being called or labeled a Negro.
Aborigine, which means what? Black folks. You never find a white Aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines, but you don't like to be called an Aborigine.
Malcolm X stated that the rock landed on us after he returned across the waters because he learned new things. He learned that the rock had truly landed on us and that we were from these lands. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also stated in his I Have a Dream speech that we are held in exile in our own homeland.
The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
Now we have a lot of scholars out there, and individuals are missing the point. How can you be held in exile in your own homeland without it being your own homeland? The tens of millions of black Americans, or rather Indians, who disappeared in 1492 did not all die in the Holocaust inflicted within America. Hundreds of thousands were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves. The whole slave trade story was given to all of us in reverse. A mass colony of Africans were not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is that black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. They were then shipped from Spain to Africa as commodity for African resources. These black Indians, now mistaken as African Americans, were shipped back to America and classified as African slaves. This part of our history is what the school systems failed to mention in history programs. The American Society was an organization formed in 1816 with the purpose of transporting free African Americans, or rather Indian slaves, classified as Negroes back then, from the United States to settle on the west coast of Africa. During the decades, the society operated and transported more than 12,000 people to Africa, and the African nation of Liberia was founded. The term African American to refer to all black people was endorsed only since 1988, but was against the desires of the majority of black people. In fact, the term was endorsed by only 5 people, including Reverend Jesse Jackson and Ramona Edlin, leading the charge as a result of a gathering called the African American Summit, without the input of the majority of black people. Author Avis J. Smith went to the district court in Washington, D.C. to stand against this term, as well as against the notion that a small group of powerful individuals should be able to compel the masses into adopting it. The systematic destruction of the Native Americans, or rather Native Indigenous Aborigine people, and their way of life was not only one of recorded history's greatest tragedies, but as with the slave trade, deeply spiritually wounding to all involved. The utter decimation of their culture is one of the most shameful aspects of history, the extent of the damage still being downplayed and denied entry into textbooks and history lessons to this day. I'm just here to make you think.
Hey, you ever? I'm just here to make you think. Shout out to Dan Calloway. Shout out to Hotep Jesus. Shout out to Miss Pearly Things. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Monday Mindset. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.